From the Daily Mail, Republicans say they were victims of a biological attack after vials of blood were sent to RNC headquarters. The RNC said its headquarters in D.C. was targeted in a biological attack on Wednesday because of the blood. After a suspicious package was found in the building, they temporarily locked it down and a hazmat team was dispatched to the scene. He said, today, vials of blood were sent to RNC headquarters in D.C. We are thankful to law enforcement who responded quickly and ensured everyone's safety. That's what. How did they know it was blood? The lockdown has been cleared and staff has resumed their office duties because we remain unintimidated and undeterred in our efforts to elect President Trump to the White House. He added this revolting attack comes on the heels of pro-Hamas protesters violently demonstrating on college campuses and deranged Biden supporters physically attacking our campaign volunteers for supporting President Trump. While Republicans fight to strengthen our economy, secure our southern border, and halt the violent crime in our communities, the fringe left is wreaking havoc, sowing fear, and lying to the public in a bad faith effort to divide Americans and sway an election. He says no matter what violent tactics Biden's extreme left supporters try next, the RNC would stand firm in our mission to deliver greater freedom and opportunity for all Americans, and we won't back down. Certainly lathering it on a bit thick there over getting a couple vials of blood, which is nasty and alarming, sure, but kind of making it seem like there was an assassination attempt on the president or something over this blood is, that story.
How mad do you think the DNC was when they found out their adrenochrome went to the wrong headquarters?
Yeah, I was going to say, some reporter is really in trouble right now. Or do you think they're just trying to lure some vampires to the RNC? They're like, here, guys, just go that way, hang out with the Republicans. I mean, it does seem a little hysterical. On the other hand, it could have been anything, and you don't really want random vials of blood showing up on your doorstep.
That's weird. Why would someone do that? Like, what is the thought process of sending blood to the RNC headquarters, right?
It could just be any lunatic.
I mean, my initial thought was how during Blinken's testimony yesterday, people were sitting there with red paint on their hands for the blood on your hands thing. I wondered if it was a reference to something like that. But I haven't Googled to see if the RNC headquarters is next to a Quest diagnostic. What if it really was just something delivered to the wrong place?
If they run a DNA test on it and find out who it is.
It'll be interesting to see if we find out who sent them these vials. We never found out who left the pipe bombs January 5th outside the DNC or RNC ever. So doesn't look like they care much about these two buildings, the security about either of these buildings. So
how much would you say that this is them just kind of hamming it up? Or like the RNC, it's like, it was a biological attack.
If it was going to be an attack, you would think it would be like anthrax or something that was actually deadly. I mean, who knows if these blood vials are even anything lethal? I mean, they were in vials. It's gross, but what's lethal about that? It's not like 2 dangerous.
Vials of blood, and I don't know. People send all sorts of weird stuff to freak people out. Maybe I guess the issue is we would need to know what accompanied the blood vials. Was there a letter saying here is the blood that has stained your hands or something like this? Or maybe it said something gross like diseased blood. I don't know.
Or it's to lab for testing for cholesterol. What if this really is just something that's sent the wrong way,
the collective works at
There's
Jane Austen.
some FedEx driver who's having the worst day. He's being interrogated by the police and he's like, I'm just really bad at my job.
It was a 23andMe and they put the wrong street.
But you spit in those.
I know, I'm kidding.
Somebody got it wrong.
You don't take 2 full vials of your blood to get your DNA
They wanted
tested.
spit, I gave them blood.
Some staffer accidentally got this mailed to the wrong location and were like, oh yeah, don't send it to my apartment, send it to my job instead. And they were like, oh wait.
And now they're having to sit there and help write this press release yes, biological attack.
Well, I mean, with things like this and with the rhetoric certainly escalating, what are we supposed to expect? What do you think, Chase, coming up in November? Obviously, the narrative is no one's going to believe the results of the election. And so with things like this, are we really looking at serious escalation of conflict? What happens after the election? Are Trump supporters going to be like, oh, Biden won, that's cool? Are Biden supporters going to be like, Trump won, all right?
What first comes to mind is the summer of love and what happened after George Floyd. I definitely foresee at minimum conflicts like that if Trump wins. I see people going to the streets, burning buildings down, Democratic district attorneys or attorney generals maybe not prosecuting these people. I definitely see violence and protests in the streets on that standpoint. Now, if Biden wins or whoever the Democratic candidate is, I'm still not 100% convinced that it's even going to be Biden. Weird things like him not being on the ballot in certain states and this DNC thing coming up and it's going to be remote now imply to me that there's something weird going on with that. But if Biden wins, I don't know if there's going to be violence or not. I find it hard to believe that there won't be some major upheaval reminiscent of J6, though I do have a tendency to believe J6 was in large catalyzed by feds.
I think that regardless of what happens in 2024, it's either going to be 28 or 32. Because, you know, we talked a little bit about this before the show, and it's something that we had talked about last night on the show. The silent and boomer generations are a stabilizing force right now in the country. And one of the main reasons people say things like, oh, Twitter is not real life. It's only because older people are less likely to be using it. So the opinions and the fights you get into are typically among younger people. Then you walk outside and the businesses run by boomers don't behave these ways. But imagine that purple-haired, woke leftist on X who's arguing with you, turns 45, gets promoted to that job level. I mean, we talked about this with Bud Light. When the Bud Light thing happened, I said that my prediction is it's going to be some millennial woman who got promoted to marketing and decided to go this route.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get the Dylan Mulvaney beer can. When the older generation is out of politics, imagine what it's going to be like when AOC is Speaker of the House.
Right.
She's going to be like, we won't bring any bill to the floor that's Trump because Trump's a white supremacist. And then you're going to have someone being like, you know, we should cut taxes. And they're going to be like, you're a Nazi.
Well, what do you think about this? I mean, traditionally we've thought, I mean, there's that old expression, if you're young and you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart. And if you're old and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. And regardless of the veracity of that expression, traditionally people, as they get older and have families, they become more conservative and have more conservative values. Do you think it's not going to happen this time with the way the demographic is? I mean, do you think that the leftists who are 25 now, when they're 35 or 45, aren't going to become more conservative in the way that maybe demographics have in the past?
Yeah, I think that saying is silly.
Yeah.
I understand why people say it. It's because of historical trends.
Right.
But what the real saying implies is when you're young, you are dumb, and then you realize how the world works.
Right.
So when they say you have no heart, oh, come on. It's like the implication is that your dad is strict with you because he has no heart. No, of course not. Your parents will be strict and tell you you are grounded. You can't go out after 10 because you were caught smoking pot with your friends because they care about you. So this idea that you've got Democrats trying to be the cool parent being like, we're going to legalize drugs. You can do whatever you want, abortion up to the point of birth or whatever. They don't care about you when they do that. That's not what someone who actually cares about you does. So this idea that if they say if you're not liberal when you're young, you have no heart, and if you're not conservative when you're old, you have no head. That's what they say. Yeah, no. The real issues of conservatism is if it's that saying is to imply when you get older, you become cold and callous but calculating, and when you're younger, you're loving but a little stupid.
Right.
No, the reality is, the conservative policies are based on helping people survive.
I agree with
and
you.
live better.
I'm just curious as to whether or not the left is going to shift to the right as it ages in this country.
So I would say no. There are people who are probably default liberal, as Breitbart would refer to them, who will go, oh, hey, whoa, I was voting for dumb things. And then they will start voting conservative. But these people aren't leftists as it is. They're normies.
Right.
The left, people like AOC, she's not going to become conservative. Nothing's going to change. She's already the kind of person where when there's a failure of government that she implements, she then blames the Republicans and corporations and then implements more failed policies. And that is the MO of the progressive leftist politician. So for people like her, these kids at these universities that are protesting, these camps, they don't actually care about Israel. Some do, I'm sure. Most of them don't. It's just the current, cause of the day. As Phil likes to point out, the cause is always the revolution. Those people aren't going to just change. They're not going to one day be like, oh man, wow, like we were out here with, we set up the People's Library. I should have charged money for that. That's not going to happen. For normies who vote Democrat because they don't pay attention, sure, those people are going to vote conservative. But for the most part, what you will see then is there's going to be a lot of people shifting to the right, and we're seeing it right now already. Younger people are moving towards Trump, but there still is a hyperpolarization. I think you'll get a larger percentage of people moving towards the Trump side of things, the MAGA side of things, because it's closer to what Americans want and expect. But the far left are being radicalized on the internet, and they're building a cult base. So they will have a fringe but large block. When boomers age out, retire, they are retiring, but then also just no longer vote because they've gone to the great beyond, as with the silent generation. The way I describe it is, imagine you have a sheet of paper and the older generation is up top and the younger generation is at the bottom, but we've split the younger generation. We're peeling the paper from the bottom up. As everyone ages and moves off the paper, you're splitting it, and eventually you end up with two separate sheets that don't go together anymore. So right now, the top of the page, it's 2 of 5 generations have political views that are similar, but the younger generations are further and further bifurcated.
Right.
What happens when that split goes all the way to the top? Now you have the United States of America, and then you have Wokistan. Do
you think the party identities were as big a deal for previous generations in, let's say 100 years ago? I feel like now one of the reasons someone wouldn't change, they'll as soon as they decide they're a progressive Democrat, they'll be one forever, is because they can't separate it from their own sense of identity.
Sure. Well, I think there have been studies that have been done. Traditionally in America, parents would rather have their children marry someone of the same religion in a different political party persuasion. And that's shifted, I believe, over the course of the last several years to parents would actually rather have their children marry someone who's a different religion as long as they're part of the same political persuasion. And so
it's a big mark of our identity now in the way that religion used to be.
Absolutely. So I do think that the political persuasion shift is much more difficult.
What about like Hellenistic religion? Maybe that goes a little too far.
Yeah. Oh, you worship Zeus?
Yeah.
But which way are you voting, though?
Yeah. As long as you don't vote for Tacitus.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.